What I'd like to ask is that as another player in this is to get, thank you, is to pull on, as asked Ralf Toumi, who's with Climate-KIC, to talk about climate services from their perspective. And so I'll pass it on to you, Ralf. Thank you.
So I'm here on behalf of the Climate-KIC to tell you a little bit about the things we've been doing and the sort of things we want to do. So first of all, what is the Climate-KIC? Some of you may not be familiar with it. It's actually Europe's largest public-private innovation partnership and focused on climate change. It's mostly made up of business partners, 30% academic, 20% public and not-for-profit research organizations and other outfits. There are 13 European national regional centers. There's slight differences between the way we organize ourselves, but basically we're spread across Europe either in the nations or in European regions. Central offices in London. And funding comes from academic and private sector partners, but above all from an annual grant, which in itself causes problems, from the European Commission to the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, who actually have a whole lot of other KICs. There's an energy KIC, a health KIC, and all sorts of other KICs coming still. Surprised nobody has shown this diagram yet. This is tells you the ecosystem or the soup or whatever else you want to call it we're in, and there's lots of arrows, and we managed to put ourselves in color at the bottom right there. So there's a lot of people in this space. I think there's a lot of overlap. I'm personally a little bit concerned about how much overlap there is. I wish there was a bit less, because I think it could be done a bit more efficiently, but this is where we are. What we're actually doing there is we have a very complicated organization in Europe which actually is chasing a really, really small market. This is an analysis done by EBI. This is back done in 2014, but I think some of the numbers, Harry, refer to 2012, I think, yeah? So they're all the numbers. So basically saying, well, okay, what is the climate market? Where's the money? Basically follow the money and you'll get a story. The money is not in adaptation. The money is in mitigation. All of the lines you see there about transportation, carbon, green buildings, energy storage, this is actual expenditure. And adaptation, they estimated, was globally of the order of 2 billion out of 1.7 trillion. So it's a very small market, and they included disaster resilience in that. And of course, that's the challenge. We think it's too small, and it's certainly tiny compared to the mitigation market. So I think that's well worth bearing in mind. Now then you say, okay, so there's 2 billion being spent globally according to this outfit. Well, where is it being spent? And basically I sort of broke it down into, I think they broke it down into 4 different categories. And the basic category where we start from, the climate information, which John has just pointed out, is by far the least important aspect in terms of where money is going. Vulnerability and assessment and monitoring and adaptation strategies, a little bit what a lot of the consultant companies do. That accounts for a large share of where the global flow of money is going. And then finally, it's the adaptation actions, which account for half the money. Now, we just heard a presentation this morning about an adaptation actions, for example, would include Copenhagen. We just heard this morning that they're planning to spend $1 billion over the next 20 years. So this was done in 2012, so at that time, globally, there wasn't $1 billion spent, really, on action. So clearly, that part of the budget, that slice, is going to grow very rapidly. I doubt very much that the others are going to grow as rapidly as that one. Ultimately, that's the one that does have to grow. There has to be some actual action, and I think it's been short on action all over Europe. They actually expect an annual growth of the order of 10 to 20%. You can argue about that. It's on the agenda, which is why we're here, adaptation. So just, for example, recently there was the climate forum, the Davos meeting, and various other risk matrices people do, and failure to adapt to climate change is high on all of the possible risks that you might want to consider. And so people recognize it as an issue, but as I showed you, it's not backed up by actual spend of money. So basically adaptation is a hard sell. It's a much smaller market than mitigation, but there is an opportunity there because it is small. It has huge potential. So if it's done properly, the growth potential is there. John illustrated that, just from his own company point of view, you can see that growth. There is huge potential. There's a complete mismatch about what needs to be done and what's actually going on. So the opportunity is actually there. So what does the Climate-KIC do? So first of all, the first thing we did very early on is we recognized that we were not actually in climate services business. So why am I here? Because of course historically there's been a lot of debate about climate services, and historically it was, if you like, a push driven by the originators of the climate data, saying, well, we must create some value out of that. The Climate-KIC clearly makes a line there. It says, well, we're not in the business of data generation, we're not in the business of Copernicus. We are in what we term the adaptation services. So it's the last 3 bits of the chain. We'll take the climate information as given, quality controlled and what have you, and then we try to create business models around that. So we term this term adaptation services. So that's what we talk about in the Climate-KIC. We do not talk about climate services, we talk about adaptation services. And basically what we're looking for is innovative services which have a high impact. And we're looking to support and develop those services to increase, obviously, the same thing, adaptive capacity of societies and businesses. So first thing, we've identified a number of challenges. Climate information. There is a huge amount of information out there. Users don't ask for it. Actually, if they do ask for it, they will often get horrified by how much there is and what to do with it. So there is probably a business opportunity around distilling it, about acting as the interloper, if you like, between the data. So how to manage the information to the user. And then the sectorial services, which really means that specific sectors have specific needs, and businesses around that have to recognize that the sectors have specific needs, and if they want to cater for them, they have to develop sectorial services, and we heard Copernicus adopting this term as well. So I'm pleased to say we did all this 4 or 5 years ago, so we're obviously being supported by others who've done a similar analysis. So then we did a further analysis. We looked at our own partners, our own businesses in the KIC. We looked at all the academic outfits. We looked at the market sizes of where actually the action was happening. We looked at where the competitive advantage is, and we basically identified 3 areas where we wanted to spend our money. One was insurance, and we'll talk about that later. Infrastructure, so energy and water utilities, and local authorities. Local authorities have actually so far been the biggest spender of money on climate services, and we think that will change, but so far they are the ones that have been spending the money, and they are spending the money, like we heard from the city of Copenhagen, because there's there's political drive to do that, and that's freeing up funds into this sector. So what sort of things are we doing? So these are acronyms, so I won't you bore them with. Just gives you an idea of the types of language we're using. So we have this idea of pathfinders, which are small market analysis type projects, trying to identify niches, opportunities, small, quick turnaround. We also have innovation projects. They're more classical, not research. We call them innovation because they are meant to produce products and services, not research papers, but they're nevertheless projects, multi-year, much bigger budgets. And we've got various acronyms, but then also we've got various challenges, the climate information, and then we cover various aspects, the utilities, the insurance sector, and local authorities. So we're defining a framework for adaptation we thought was important. We defined a value chain early on. We see that value chain seeing other people basically come to the similar conclusion of where the value chain is and where things are. We've merged from climate service to adaptation services. We focus downstream, and we think the KIC is in a good position. And I've lost the bottom of that slide there. And we also play a role within the other European actors and hope to participate in their strategy. So how do we generate projects? This is really important to us. So this is the co-definition or co-creation. So just to give you an idea, we identified utility energy was an important thing, important opportunity, for creating new projects. So basically we created a workshop. We invited the key participants in the KIC who we thought might be interested We actually strategically moved to a different part where we had previous energy projects in France. We wanted to go to Germany, so we went to Germany to get some local actors there, because we know business is hard to get. If you just send invitations, people don't come. You have to make it easy for them. You have to make incentives. It takes time, so we have experience in that. Anyway, we built this. We had this workshop. We brainstormed ideas around innovation projects, and ultimately came to a proposal to the KIC, which was then internally evaluated with external reviewers, and finally became a project which is just starting. So that's the sort of process under which we go, and it's business-led, not academic-led. Other things we get involved in is training. We think there's business development opportunities, professional development opportunities. So this is an example of a short course that was run in Holland, and we try to link the innovation projects. We try to bring students in, academics in, small businesses, but it's all very much based on often based on the local strength and bringing in local actors. So I think there's another activity similar to this, for example, in Italy this year, where there was a strong appetite to do something similar. So there's an education and training element as well to what we do. Our flagship, or one of our, I can't say flagship, one of our successful innovation project was around insurance, and particularly about catastrophe modeling. It's Oasis is the name of the project. And so what I put on the left here is how we measure that it's successful. So we have a basic way in which we define success, and the very first thing you'll see there, it's attracted money. That's the first thing, which is a powerful signal that we're doing something right. So that's attracted capital investment from an insurance company. It's created other companies, other spin-out companies, which are also now sustaining themselves. There's sort of recognition, so there's recognition from industry that this is a good thing, so it's won 2 industry awards. There's interest from other international bodies. It got a mention in the recent Climate Service Roadmap mention, and it can also link into other KICs. So that's how we measure how something would work. This is a very specific project. The reason it's worked, it was completely demand-driven. It was basically the sector come to, if you like, a critical point where there was a need for innovation in the specific space in catastrophe modeling, and there was a demand, and we managed to fill the demand and continue to fill that demand. So it wasn't, if you like, the academics saying we've got something clever. It was actually us being able to identify in an industry sector there was need and demand for change. And so now this organization actually includes at least, growing, 44 members of the insurance sector, all the world's leading, or many of the world's leading insurance, reinsurance and brokers are part of this, and it's one of our great success stories. So where do we see the adaptation landscape? We think that the KIC could play a role in helping the other European institutions which are also tackling with it. So we were on the expert panel for the roadmap. Oasis was mentioned, like I said. We're also supporting the Climate Support Action proposal. We hope to work with ERANET. We're trying to explore ways of combining with people, making our money go further in this space. So finally, the vision for the KIC is to enable Climate-KIC, so enable us to bring to market the most innovative and high-impact adaptation services addressing the climate challenge. And we are cross-European, and we are at the moment seen as a leader for innovation. Maybe not because we do it very well, but actually we were set up 3 or 4 years ago, back in the days when Framework 7 was very much about research, and there was no other innovation activity, and that's why maybe we have a little bit of a head start, but clearly a lot of other people now are mandated to use taxpayers' money to drive innovation. We just have a little bit of a head start, but we hope to share that with anybody else that's interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralf. We have time for a couple questions. Yes, please. Just a sec.
Hi. I'm curious to know if you have any visibility of which European markets are likely to be the biggest markets in the next 10 or 20 years. And my second question is about who do you think are going to be the big spenders in the next 10, 20 years?
So Well, like I said, we buy reports of people, consultants that have done analysis. We also looked at public information, and Harry Lowes will correct me, but I think what we basically looked at was, where the adaptation action is, where the total spend is going to be largest. So infrastructure came out the highest spend, and then that drives the need for services for the actual spend. And that there's nothing unique about Europe in that case. So infrastructure could include utilities, for example, and things like that. So that's the big. I can't remember this. Was the second part of your question?
Which markets? Geographical markets? France, Germany.
Oh, well, I think there's clearly there's a north-south split in terms of demand, capability, and so forth. So I see the money being spent in the north.
One more question?
Not the need necessarily, but
this gentleman here asked the last time, and I had to pass on, so I'll pass it.
I'll just keep on. I'll just ask you. You just said there is a north-south split, and the money is going to be spent in the north.
Probably.
Why? Is it only because there is less money in the south? Is it because the problem is less important in the south, or is it because the problem is perceived as less important in the south, or is it just because the south is unable to plan and to program?
So,
I come from Italy.
Yes, sure. Now, just let me split it in two parts. Right. So first of all, the real spend so far has been by the public sector in terms of demanding climate services. We just heard a very good example this morning from the city of Copenhagen, and it's classic. It is not, and therefore if you like, there is a cultural willingness, there's a political will, and there are resources to spend on climate services. And that's where I see that bit. I think in terms of the public sector, that's where that comes. If you think about the private sector, if you think about companies, big companies can be in the south as well as in the north. So if the big companies are persuaded about the business model for spending money on climate services, they will spend it in the south as well as in the north. So on that basis, I'm not making a north-south distinction. I'm just making a distinction in terms of the appetite for the public sector to spend money on adaptation. This is our perception.
Thank you very much, Ralf. You're around today and tomorrow?
I'm around today and tomorrow.
So lots of opportunities to talk to him, particularly in the brokerage sections and activities, et cetera. Thank you. Okay. One of the things that we wanted to do here was we've tried to give you in these presentations, and I apologize that it's a lot of presentations, but we wanted to give you that feeling of what the environment was, what the environment wanted to do, what the environment within which we see this climate services operating. And the questions that you were asking, I think, were very helpful in starting to look at that. For example, the last question that you talked about is very much in the roadmap. How do we enhance the market, if we want to use a simple term, across Europe? That's vital to that, and that's similar to your question, is how do we do that? How do we grow it so it's not just the sectors that are where there's a lot of money, but the sectors where it's critical and decisions required to do it? How do we grow that market and grow the capability of using this? And the reason that we wanted to do that is because the European Commission saw this as vital to improving decision making. That's what it wanted to do. But it also was because it wanted to see Europe as number one in this area, as a leading in this whole area of climate services. So it's the two concepts that they're trying to look at, because it saw this as being able to make decisions. If we could make decisions that are informed, we will be a much more sustainable Europe. And we had to do that across all of Europe. We can't just do it in 5 or 6 countries. We have to do it across Europe. So it was trying to look at that. So these are some of the challenges that were reflected in the roadmap. This brokerage session we thought would be informed, it's been more than just myself and Dagmar that have been doing this, and I like some of the people from Module 2 to stand up just so that I can introduce them. Hans? So yes, please do stand up. Please do. Yes. So these are some of the other people that were involved. And Jeanette, do you just want to introduce yourself very quickly?
Jeanette Westman from KMI, Dutch Meteorological Institute, and 10 years on the interaction between research and the users.
Yes. Hans? Very much so. Yeah. Thank you. I wanted to do that because this is, now we're going to start into really understanding and focusing on and giving you an opportunity to direct that. One of the things we've done, we've given you a picture of the broad research and innovation environment which we're working in. We then looked at it, the role of the private and the public sector and looking at that. But one of the aspects that we thought in the JPI Climate that it would be useful for you to understand is to get some of the issues that are coming out in each of the, in the sectors. We thought that'd be useful and give you a bit of a sector focus. And for those of you that are aware, there are a number of JPIs that are focused on different sectors. And we thought just give you a very quick, some of the challenges that the different JPIs saw that were related to climate services. And we've asked a couple of them to come, and I think I've got everybody here that said they were going to be here.